Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Q&A. So let me go ahead and put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, and let's get to this first question. Alright, Jason, a few months ago I tried a squats and milk style program and made huge improvements on my squat. So I plan to give Bulgarian style training program a go. I know you've spoken about it in the past. I seem to struggle finding routines that don't include the other Olympic lifts. I'd be interested to hear Jason Blaha style Bulgarian template. There's no need for me to really make you a template, brother. I can give you the names of several people who have different takes on Bulgarian light style training. Because obviously you're going to do Bulgarian light. You're not going to do normal Bulgarian training. Because I'm going to assume you don't have 48 hours a week to dedicate to the gym. Because that's what real Bulgarian training is. Now, Bulgarian light, there's 3 different guys out there who actually have really good info and ideas out there on it. The one who I would consider to have the lowest workload aspects of it would be Greg Nuckols. I know I think he's rebranding his site. It was called Strength Theory. I know he's rebranding himself, but Greg's actually a pretty good coach, a pretty serious lifter himself. He does it as low as frequencies, as low as 4 times a week is what he goes with. You could look into his work. Then you've got Matt Perryman, who wrote a book called Squat Every Day, which is, again, essentially a form of Bulgarian light. He's got ideas on the templates. It's more of what I would consider more pure Bulgarian light in a sense of, I think he's got minimal amounts of extra stuff in there beyond that, but it's squatting every day. And he's got some good ideas in there. You can check out his book on it. And then finally, you're going to have someone like John Broz, who takes the more hardcore approach. And I think it's Broz. I think it's B-R-O-Z. I think that's how it's spelled. But John Broz has some good articles out there on it. He has had guys at his gym for many years do a Bulgarian-style training in which they do come in and they hit a training max every single day. He doesn't believe ever in skipping days, like an every other day approach. So he wouldn't actually approve of the method of like Greg Nuckols, where it's only 4 days a week, because he feels like that's worse for your connective tissue. That because your muscles and connective tissue, if they're being hit every day, are recovering at similar rates, everything will be limited by your recovery on your training maxes. And I'm pretty sure, I think John Broz has guys coming right up to a meet start reducing the weight just slightly the final days before a meet to maintain their neural efficiency so they can finally recover a little bit. But yeah, I believe he has people doing everything 6 days a week, and oftentimes they include back off sets, meaning so you're talking about coming in, hit a training a max, and then a back off triple on a lot of days. And I think he doesn't have much Olympic lifts in there. I think he has people do something like 4 to 6 lifts a day, get in and out, and they're done. So John Broz is, again, more of the more hardcore end of it. But, you know, his guys are strong and his training works, so I wouldn't overlook that just because it's hardcore. But you've got a pretty good spectrum of people to pick from with those suggestions. Alright, next question. Hey Jason, for abdominal exercises, what amount of reps would you recommend? For the other muscle groups, it's 8 to 12 for hypertrophy and 12 plus for muscular endurance. Do these ranges also apply to abs, or doesn't it matter? Thanks. I really hate kind of those ranges being broke down like that, because you can get hypertrophy in any rep range. You really can. You're looking more at performance elements of things like peak power, max strength, again, strength endurance. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Honestly, I personally believe in training the core usually anywhere and from as low as 8 to 10 reps up as high as 25 or 30. I don't think either one is wrong. Because you do need an endurance element to your core, so if you want to go higher, that's fine. But you've got to look at it from the perspective of what are you training your core for specifically. I mean, if you really needed to nail it down to a rep range instead of just coming in and doing extra core work after all your big exercises, because you need to remember your core work is supplemental work no matter what. It's accessory work. Your big lifts, your squats, your deadlifts, your standing presses, chin-ups, all of that are going to handle a big chunk of your core development. All you're trying to do with extra core work is come in and ensure that your core is not a weak link in anything. So honestly, rep range doesn't matter a a whole lot until you start getting into specificity of training. Meaning rep ranges might want to equal the amount of time you might need your core to work in some sort of competitive environment. If you're not worried about it for a specific carryover to something, I wouldn't worry about it a lot. Anything between 8 and 30 reps is probably acceptable, whichever end of the spectrum you choose to do or rotate through them. But if you've got specific sports requirements, like that you want it to carry over ideally to your squat, and you could time how long it takes you to walk out, hit a max squat, or even a 5-rep max squat, and then walk it back in. And you might want to pick a number of reps for core work that gives you that same amount of time under tension that you're stabilizing the core at that point. That could be a workable method, or you could be a boxer. You could time how long you're in the ring that you might be taking blows to your core, and get your core training up to a similar amount of time. So I mean, you could have a sport-specific component to it, but outside of that, I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot, because again, you got to remember, this is supplemental work. The other stuff is most of your work. This is supplemental just to ensure that you don't have weak links, or if you need something very specific for carryover. All right, next question. Thoughts on doing non-standing versions of rows, such as chest-supported seated row or seal rows instead of regular barbell rows, due to high-frequency squatting and deadlifting? I don't want to put any additional fatigue on my lower back, as I already do high-frequency squatting and deadlifting. Even though I'm still capable of doing barbell rows, I want my lower back to be as recovered as possible, because I will be squatting deadlifting again so soon. Or should I stick to the barbell rows anyways? Honestly, it's going to depend on where your strength level is and where your lower back is. Obviously, my novice program, I've got high frequency squatting, moderate frequency deadlifting, and then people doing high frequency standing rows. But I'm also trying to make sure that I'm developing all their stabilizers, their core, their posterior chain, everything maximally before they're in an intermediate. And in that case, yeah, for those people, they might want to just get it all balanced out. Now, if you're doing really high frequency deadlifting and your lower back is not recovering, then yeah, you might want to consider going over to some of the chest supported rows, or rows that are at least not working your lower back. But also, you also have the option of, if you're wanting to take your lower back and your posterior chain out of an upper back or middle back exercises, I don't know why you're picking rows. That's where things like weighted chin-ups and weighted pull-ups really shine. That's where I would go personally if I wanted to remove the posterior chain and everything out of the exercise, because they offer a lot of other advantages. So I would pull rows out completely. Go to chin-ups, go to pull-ups. If you want to remove that out of there. There's no need for you to do a chest-supported row. Find a bar to pull yourself up on. You'd be good to go. All right, next question. Could you give us a good mobility routine, or point us to one to do daily or every other that's short time, but especially for us 35 plus guys? Can keep our hips, groin, back, and legs well oiled for moving our bodies through space. I've answered this one a lot in the past. I'll answer it again. DeFranco's Agile 8 is what I've been recommending since I've been on YouTube for something like 3 or 4 years for people who need extra mobility work. I think it's pretty fantastic. Other people are like, well, he's got other ones out there. That's fine, but that one I know is proven. I know it works, and I think it's a good starting point. So DeFranco's Agile 8, and that's by Joe DeFranco, the strength and conditioning coach. All right, next question. Hey Jason, at what point do exercises cease to make any significant gains? All I do for lower body are squats, deads, upper rows, chin-ups, overhead bench, etc. Are the guys who end up doing 25 sets, including numerous variations in fluff and pump movements, simply wasting their time, or is the extra work adding anything of any value? Honestly, man, guys who are coming in and doing 25 sets for a body part in a given workout or whatever, no, they're just burning calories. They're burning calories, they're burning through glucose, that's it. Might be an effective way to burn more calories, but it's probably not adding much muscle growth. And a lot of these guys are either training beyond their maximum recoverable fatigue, which could be impeding their progress because it's going to reduce the frequency they train at. But the thing is, a lot of people look at something, and if they're making progress, they don't care if they're not making maximum progress. But yeah, I think a lot of that is just wasted, particularly all the fluff and pump guys who are coming in and they're already doing a bunch of chin-ups and then rows, and then they do 4 different exercises for their biceps. I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous. They're not really getting anything out of that. They're probably getting something out of the first bicep exercise. If you've done 3 or 4 sets of chin-ups, or 3 or 4 sets of rows, probably only the first bicep exercise you're doing is giving you any real benefits on some of this fluff and pump they're doing. But yeah, the first 3 or 4 sets of curls might actually be adding some muscle growth, but it depends on what their experience level is and everything. If they're a novice, yeah, all this volume probably isn't doing a lot. Adding all these extra isolation movements probably is doing very, very little for them. More advanced lifter, yeah, adding an isolation in is probably helping them a bit with a weak point or to target an area of a muscle. But when they're coming in and doing 6 different exercises for a body part, in that case, chin-ups, rows, 3 or 4 types of curls, yeah, it's just wasteful. They're not really adding anything beyond a certain point. But, people are going to do what people are going to do. Alright guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.